Welcome back. Democrats and Republicans both recognize the toll opioid abuse is taking on the country. There is certainly a sense of urgency across the country, but the results take time. Last week's mass shooting in Jacksonville during a video game competition also keeps the discussion of gun violence in focus. Tara Rahman brought up both guns and the opioid crisis with Representative Sherry Bustos. Bustos, as it happens, serves on the bipartisan heroin task force. The Trump administration has also made this a priority. We asked Representative Bustos how well the White House policy matches her approach.
This truly is an issue that Democrats and Republicans have come together and passed meaningful legislation together to help address this. The last congressional session, we actually had 14 bills that were bipartisan bills, introduced in bipartisan fashion and passed, both Democrats and Republicans getting on board overwhelmingly to pass this legislation. So my hope is that the legislation that we've passed and the appropriations, the money that is needed to fund these programs, come together at some point. This $5 million that was approved just last week is a sign that there's this recognition that you can't just have programs without funding to make real and meaningful change.
How do you think rural health care can move from being, and we need to catch up to the urban counterparts, to a living system really that can be a force that drives the local economy?
Well, it's all got to work economically too, but you know, again, I think telemedicine, there's a lot that we could do with that. We are not going to be able to attract, for instance, a robust number of neurosurgeons in a rural area. It's not going to happen. We don't have the patient base to do that. We're not going to be able to attract probably the right number of dermatologists. For that matter, even obstetricians to deliver babies. So we've got to figure out then the transportation needs to get patients out. Where can telemedicine come into play? How can we partner with medical schools to see if we can incentivize those who are getting out of medical school to go to rural areas? It's going to take a big combination of measures in order to be able to address the healthcare needs in rural America.
You did touch on a little bit about your background, and you're not a stranger to guns, and you're the Second Amendment and all of that, and but you are kind of in a unique position among your party, and you may, I feel like, find yourself straddling the line because there are people among in your party who don't agree with the fact that you don't vote along party lines necessarily, especially on this issue. So how would you say that your background and your views inform the way that you align yourself with or create legislation, especially when it comes to gun control?
I see nothing wrong with that. And so what I share with members of my party is that let's be very careful about how we talk about people who own weapons. As long as they're law-abiding people, and like I said, my husband and my son and my grandson went out hunting this weekend, and you know, I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also believe that if you are deranged, you should not be able to go buy a gun. And but if you are law-abiding and you want to go hunting or you want to go to the shooting range, then that's okay. And I think that's the tone that's important to strike. And again, you know, in this congressional district, 14 counties and 7,000 square miles, you know, the 99.9% of the people who own weapons want it in their homes to protect their family, or they want to go hunting, or they want to go to the shooting range, but they don't have criminal intent. And that's really important to recognize that as well. And yet, you know, the kids in Parkland, Florida, the parents from Sandy Hook, I think they're on the right track. They just want to make sure that we have reasonable gun legislation. And I agree with that.
Tara Rahman with Congresswoman Sherry Bustos. Coming up, Illinois' governor says no to raising the minimum pay for teachers. Where can compromise be found on this issue? For the record.